Alright everyone, it's time for the Occult, video number 257, when good vibes and happy thoughts are meaningful. Most of the time, the hippie trippy thing doesn't really solve anything. It's like the idea of sending Yoko Ono over to do diplomacy or something. The good feels thing can sometimes be helpful, however. Occasionally in diplomacy, but more often within a medical context. I'll tell you why. By the way, disclaimer, I'm not giving you official medical advice with this video, actually. I'm sort of just skirting that particular issue as a core to talk about maybe the pseudo-spiritual side of things. With the exception of viruses, and to some extent with them, and cancer, chewing on a root and going to the tambourine circle with your hippie friends is almost as effective as medical treatment in the more standard sense. It's called the placebo effect, but it goes deeper than that. The idea is this. Stress is a main cause of illness. Stress causes cardiovascular problems, or at least triggers underlying issues. It can cause respiratory upset, certainly. You've all seen someone get upset enough to hyperventilate, a very palpable physical response. It causes headaches and aches and pains and depression and anxiety, and sometimes it triggers things that then in turn trigger additional things. Now, of course, you get stressed, therefore you get anxious. Your anxiety causes other problems. You get stressed and it causes depression. Depression comes with a whole host of potential physical, palpable syndromes. Now, a lot of people, if they get a headache, they think the underlying disorder is something that they need aspirin, they need some sort of therapy or something. In many cases, probably the majority, a reduction of stress in their lifestyle, a topical change to the way that they eat, a topical change to the way in which they live their life, exercise-wise, lifestyle in general, change of surroundings, taking a vacation, those things would do more help. The fact is that stress kills a lot of people. Insofar as that's true, if a person, for instance, they're stressed, they've got subconscious guilt about eating meat, so they become a vegetarian, that's good feel, love bead, meditation, Hedgewicca stuff, but it could have an actual effect. It could make them feel better. They've got insomnia. They choose to treat it with meditation or something. Meditation in and of itself has a fairly limited direct medical benefit, but it can reduce stress. They do yoga or something like that. They do more exercise. They get out into nature more. If they're going out and doing like pagan shit out in the woods, at least they're getting exercise. Maybe they're throwing back a couple of meads. Maybe that helps with stress reduction. They go to an orgy or something. These things can be meaningful even though in the direct medical context, in the most literal and mundane sense, they don't really have that much of an effect, or in some cases none at all. Chewing up that herb may have no medical impact whatsoever, but if you believe that it does, and you see any benefit even short term, your mind gets tricked into thinking that it'll keep being beneficial. I remember there was a famous Andy Griffith episode long ago. It's like early 60s or 50s or something. Sort of the Leave It to Beaver era of television. Back when sitcoms were watchable, back when they didn't suck. I hate to tell you this, but I hate 90s sitcoms. I don't understand why people like Friends and Seinfeld and shit like that. I find them unwatchable. They're not funny. None of the jokes are funny, and most of them are so dated at this point. They stopped being funny at least during the Clinton administration. But I like the old ones. And there was this one episode in which Aunt B, it was Andy Griffith's aunt in the show, sort of an older lady. She was, having headaches and just felt tired and unhealthy and sad because, of course, she's getting older and she's getting stressed about things. She feels like she doesn't have the energy she used to. She ends up, there's a snake oil salesman that comes through selling elixir. And a bunch of people try it, and of course it's snake oil. All it is alcohol. It's basically whiskey. She gets some of this, and she takes it, and she feels so much better. Now, of course, she's just getting drunk, and of course, Andy Griffith eventually finds out that this is the case. In the end, they just say, fuck it. Even though it's, this takes place in Prohibition, so it's technically legal, so they're hush-hush. A lot of the episodes revolve around him busting up moonshine stills and dragging in drunks, and that's always very funny. Anyway, at the end, they just decide, well, even if this elixir isn't magic, she's just getting tipsy, she is happier. She's happier and she's healthier. She's more energetic. She gets more done. And this has a positive effect on her life. This is basically the story of much of medicine. I edit books from 100 years ago, and some of the recipes that they call for clearly don't have a medicinal impact, or they're just getting the person high. They got like laudanum or whiskey or alcohol or something in them. Oh, if you take these cannabis cigarettes, you'll feel so much better. Of course you will. You're getting high. The thing is, though, they worked. They obviously worked. People didn't suddenly start understanding cause and effect in the last century. They did understand, use this substance, and it causes an impact. The impact was there. The Victorian medicine worked, just for different reasons. And of course, it can't fight polio. It can't fight rabies. It can't fight a virus, and it can't get rid of your cancer. But for many human ailments, it can do well. As long as you have a good diagnostic system capable of telling whether that headache is a tumor or stress-related, homeopathy does technically work. Placebos work. They work very well. So good vibes and happy thoughts are meaningful. Keep in mind, of course, the current epidemic we're facing is viral in nature. Good thoughts are not going to help you with that. Lifestyle change could, though. You're getting out into nature and away from people. Yeah, that might help you not get coronavirus. Absolutely. I'm not saying you should quarantine yourself out in a tent in the middle of some national park somewhere, but it would be meaningful. And of course, fighting off disease becomes easier. If your immune system is more beefy because you're not under stress, lack of sleep can cause compromised state. You've got to keep that in mind as well. Stress is a killer. People who are in better shape, tuberculosis is a great example. People 100 years ago who frequently didn't have enough food, access to clean water, they worked long hours, they got tuberculosis and they frequently died. Today, there are hundreds of millions of carriers of TB in the world who have no symptoms at all simply because they get enough sleep and a good meal. And that's really suppresses what would otherwise be a return to the Victorian disease. By the way, if we ever have a major depression, look for hundreds of millions of people probably to die of that, unfortunately. That's about all. Peace out.